Shabbat Shalom. We're delighted you're with us. And I guess I have a few introductions to make. My name is Barry Nicholsberg. I am the cantorial soloist here at Temple Beth David. We are in Snellville, Georgia, just outside of Atlanta, and I'm delighted you would join us tonight. It is the 24th of June, 2022, which also makes it the 25th of Sivan of 5782. Yes, I had to look at it because I still can't believe it. So, let me introduce a few folks up here, and we'll get started with this evening's service. First, to my left, our Vice President and lead guitar, Bobby Horowitz. And to my right, this is Jim Murray, and that is Heather Murray. And yes, they do have the same last name, and there's a good reason for it. Back on the board, our streaming specialist is Denise Whitlock, and the person who will make sure that whatever you put in the chat room, which is only reasonable, will be read aloud. That's my bride, Jeannie Nicholsberg. With that, I would like very much to get started with a question. I like to open these services with a question just to get us thinking about Shabbat. Where were you last Shabbat? Where were you physically and where were you spiritually? I'll tell you, for me, last Shabbat, I was in Williamsburg, Virginia, working. And at right at 7:30, I thought something is wrong because I am so focused on being here on Friday evenings that when I wasn't here, it just didn't feel right. I did not feel centered for the week. So we really need to take stock of what has happened in the past 6 days. Ask ourselves, what kind of person was I this week? Was I thoughtful? Was I superficial? Was I preoccupied? Was I appreciative? Did I laugh? Did I cry? Did I tell anyone how much I love him or her? Did I use my week well? And what does that even mean? What lessons will I take with me into the future? So here we are. As we enter this Shabbat, let us release the past week, its joys and its sorrows. Let's free ourselves from any misgivings or guilt. Let us be ready to look for new happiness and bring the best of us to new experiences during the week to come. With that, I am going to ask Heather if she will light the Shabbat candles. You can follow along on page 121 of the Mishkan Tefillah.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our own lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own way, be among those who kindle light.
These are our trick candles, and they're doing a fine job tonight.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu k'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lad nikner Shel Shabbat. Blessed are you, our Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle light of Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehanikneh shel I would invite you to turn to page 138 and join us in singing Lecha Dodi. If you are not familiar with our custom here at Temple Beth David, we sing verses 1, 5, and 9. When we get to the 9th verse, we all rise, physically and or spiritually, face the door we came into wherever we are at the moment, and we sing the last verse to the door because we are actually at that point welcoming the Sabbath bride. Page 138, Lecha Dodi. Sure. Lecha Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Panei Shabbat Kabbalat. Lecha Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Panei Shabbat. Nikabela la 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 lecha dodi, likrat kala, panei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, panei Shabbat nikabela. Shamor v'zachor v'yiporecha, Hishrianu el hamchad, Adonai echad, Shemo echad. L'shem v'tifi eret, v'la la 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 lecha dodi, likrat kala, panei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, panei Shabbat nikabela. Toreri, Kiva orech kuliuri, uri shir daveri. Kibon Adonai Allah yechili la 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 lecha dodi, likrat kala, panei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, panei Shabbat nikabela. Please rise physically and or spiritually, face the door we came in as we begin the 9th and final verse of Lecha Dodi. Bo'i b'shalom ateret ala, gam b'simcha sola, toch emuneh am shirula, bo'im hala, la 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 lecha dodi, likrat kala, panei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, panei Shabbat nikabela. La 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 lecha dodi, likrat kala, panei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, panei Shabbat nikabela. Please be seated, and if you would turn to page 144, you will find the Reader's Kaddish, the Chatzi Kaddish, and I will ask Bobby, as we do every week, if he would please lead us. Page 144.
Yitgadav yitgadash shemei Rabba, v'yamad yivarach chirutei v'yamich malchutei, b'chayechonu v'yomechon, u'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, Bagala, Bagala, Uvizman Kariv, Vimru, Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevorach, Le'olam U'al Me'al Maya, Yitbarach, Yitbarach, Vishtabach, Yitpar, Vitroman, Vitnaseh, Vithadar, Vitale, Vitalal, Shemei Dekudasha Berichu, Leila Min Kobrachata Veshirata, Tushbechata V'lechemata, Damiran Biama, Vimeru, Amen.
In football, what I'm about to do is called an audible. I'm changing something up. And I'm just got to let everybody know. So after we do the Baruch, since everyone is standing at that point, let's do the Shema, and then we'll go back to the English readings. Okay? Cool. All right. With that, I invite you to rise. Page 146, our call to worship, the Baruch. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Ya ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Baruchu et Adonai. Amen. Please turn to page 152. Stay standing for the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Shemkipo Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Please be seated. And if you will turn to page 149, yes, we're going back just a couple. I'd invite you to read along with Jim, starting with Praise to You.
Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and seasons glide. Your breath guides the sails of the stars, creator of the tide of time and light. You guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows.
Would you please turn to page 151 and read along with Jim, starting with As You Taught Torah.
As you taught Torah to those names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mysteries beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery.
Would you please turn to page 154? I am going to chant the V'ahavta sentence by sentence, and as I do it in Hebrew, Jim will read the English translation for you. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha.
You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might.
V'hayo hadavarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom alevavecha.
Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day, and press them upon your children.
V'shinatam levanecha v'dibata bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha u'v'leftecha v'derech u'b'shoftecha u'v'kumecha.
Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up.
Ukshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letatafot ben einecha.
Bind them as a sign on your hand, and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead.
Uktavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha.
Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates.
L'man tiskaru ve'asitem et kel mitzvotai v'yetem kadoshim l'Elohechem.
Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments and to be holy to your God.
Ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeichem mieretz Mitzrayim liot lachem l'Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem.
I am Adonai your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai your God.
Adonai Elohechem. Amen. Please turn to page 155. I will ask Jim to lead you. Please join him, starting with Love Your God, page 155.
Love your God with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children. Talk about them at work, whether you are tired or you are rested. Let them guide the work of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorway of your house or outside your gate. They are reminders to do all of my mitzvot, so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai your God. I led you out of Egypt to become your God. I am Adonai your God.
Page 158, please join us in singing Mi Chamocha. Ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la la, ya la 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 la. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nehedar b'kodesh, Nora tehilot oseh feleh, Nora tehilot oseh feleh. Malechut tivara uranecha, okei ayam mifnei Sheya Miriam, Ze'elianu bi'aru, Ze'elianu bi'aru. Adonai imnoch le'olam ba'ed, Adonai imnoch le'olam ba'ed. Mi chamocha ba'alim Adonai,
Tehilot Osen Felet, Torah Tehilot Osen Felet.
The next we're going to sing, the next piece is found on page 160. It's Hashkivenu, and I'm going to ask Denise Whitlock if it's all right for me to interpret this one. I got a thumbs up, so we're going to do it in Hebrew, we're going to do it in English, and we're also going to do it in American Sign Language.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Shalom, Shalom, V'hamidenu Malkeinu L'chaim. Ufos aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha, Ufos aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha.
Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. Amen.
That was fun. Sorry. I do that because Jeannie likes it. I should do other things because she likes it too. Okay, with that, would you please turn to page 164 in the Mishkan Tefillah and rise for the Tefillah. Anananananana Adonai, Anananananana Saptai Tifta, Anananananana Ofiagi, Ofiagi Tehilatecha, Anananananana Adonai, Ananananana Saptai Tifta. Ananananana Ofiagi, Ofiagi Tehilatecha, Ananananana Adonai, Ananananana Saptai Tifta, Ananananana Ofiagi, Ofiagi Tehilatecha. Page 166. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu v'Imoteinu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Elohei Zilpah Elohei Bilhah Elohei Tamar Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor V'Hanora El Elyon Gomer Chasadim Tovim V'Konei Hakol V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imahot U'Megula Livnei Bneihem L'Ma'an Shemo B'Yahava Melech Ozer U'Mashiach U'Magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham, V'Yetzrat Sarah, page 168. Atah Gibor Yolam Adonai, Mechayei Hakal Atah Rav Le'Oshia, מוריד הטל, מחכה חיים בחסד, מחיה הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר עשורים, ומקיים אמונתו, בלי שני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח מתשועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה הכל. Page 170. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. Please be seated. Our worlds are busy and noisy. Traffic jams, horns blaring, cell phones ringing, text messages buzzing. Hopefully not in here tonight. Too often we hear without listening. Let's take a moment to embrace the gift that only the quiet in this sanctuary and in our own minds can deliver. I invite you to join me in praying silently. I've said repeatedly over the years that that's my favorite song. We have it because of Bobby Horowitz. He arranged it as he's arranged many pieces. But I don't sing that song from my throat. I sing it from my heart. And I know Bobby does, and now I hear Jim doing the same thing, and Heather's right with us. That was just observation. Normally, we would go right to the Mishaberach at this moment. But if you've learned one thing about me leading services is that I am not normal. While I was trying to put together a devar for this evening, I came upon something else. I started reading Lamentations, the book of Lamentations. Not something you just pick up for easy reading. But I was drawn to the following, Lamentations 5:4. We paid with silver to drink our own water. Our own wood was acquired at an exorbitant price. And I thought, what are they saying? What is this? Well, we have learned, because of COVID crisis and supply chain economics, that necessities are often very expensive during the time of crises. A Torah can also come at a price when times get rough. Water is often used as a metaphor for Torah, and so too is wood. Hence, in Hebrew, Etz Chaim Hi, the tree of life, to all who hold fast to it. That's Proverbs 3:18. The rabbis understood the verse from Lamentation to be saying they paid with silver to learn from their own Torah, an exorbitant price to get the advice of their teacher. The rabbis saw Torah as necessity, just like water and firewood, a life-sustaining force that saw them through good times and bad. The memory of the Jewish people turned to Torah during the darkest of times in history, the destruction of the temple, Roman persecutions, and of course the Holocaust. In our generation too, in the face of all of our own troubles, the Torah is a tree of life for all those who hold fast to it. I know none of you will find this hard to believe. I left the devar at home. That piece I brought. It'll be an interesting devar, I promise. With that, I invite you to turn to page 371. I will read sort of in the middle. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, Leah, Zilpah, Bilhah, and Tamar, bless and heal those who are ill. May the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and for their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and spirit, and let us say, Amen. If you have names you would like to add to this evening's Mishaberach list, I go ahead and put them in the chat box, and Jeannie, I will ask you to read them aloud.
Linda and Stephen Ely, Susan and Larry Aft, Allison Slaughter, Robert Whitlock, Emily Holler, Kay Omer, and David Baker, Tanya Hurst, Mab Francis, Amy Goldstone, Lisa Miller, Jerry Wells, Bonnie Miller, Sandy Tejan, Mike Roth, Dennis Sadler, Lisa Ann Gaston, Arlene Conley, Carol and Powell Hassel, Patty Beeman, Roxana and Frank Gomez.
Thank you. Jeannie, I gather you're going to walk around to those here in the sanctuary so that we can hear who they would like to add as well.
Penny and Morty Gross, Peter Yarrow, Sandy Steinberger, Morris and Felice Friedman, Katie Adler, Linda and Steve Ely, Andrew Fine, Pete Kokinda, Bobby Ginsberg, Daisy Fine.
Shannon Pointer, Joel Freed, Elliot Freed, Chaim Freed, Stephen Miller, Sue Katz, Maxine Weiss, James Beaver, Emily Beaver, Stephen Chelko, Bill Conley.
Judy Ricketson, David Cobor, Mary Ruth Downey and her newborn baby Judah, Steve Henson.
Barbara Yarbrough, Barbara Freed, Ronnie Eggers, Susan Eilers, Susie Horowitz, Ron Robinson, Ann Olin, and Sarah Berlin.
Denise, do you have names you'd like to add? Okay. Bobby?
Keith Hood, Susie Horowitz, Edwin Speck, Andrew Wheeler.
Thank you. Heather?
Andy Sizemore, Lexi Scalar, and Cindy Strong.
Jim? Okay. I will add Hannah Lizzo, David Baker, who seems to be going through a real trial these days, Linda Ely, Joanne Stein, Brenda Gibson, and Peter Yarrow. Also, all those affected by COVID-19, which by my count, there are more people who have been affected by COVID-19 than haven't. And we pray for all the citizens of Ukraine and their loved ones. I would invite you, please, to sing along with us on page 371, Misha Berach.
Bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen.
Tonight's Devar, although I left it at home, I kind of remember. I did study it for the week. I just didn't have a chance to restudy it this evening after I arrived. It's sort of a process I go through. So this week's Torah portion is Shalach Lecha. Shalach Lecha. It means go. Send yourself. What does that mean, send yourself? God is telling Moses to let the people know that they are about to cross into Canaan, Israel. They have been slaves for 240 years. They've gone through the desert. Manna has fallen from heaven every single day. It tastes like anything you want it to taste like. In addition to the manna from heaven, there were quail. There were so many quail that all you had to do was hold a net and they would fly into it for you. These were all gifts from God. He showed them 10 plagues. He showed them a way to cross the Sea of Reeds. He showed them the annihilation of their Egyptian enemies. He gave them the Torah. And he has told them, you can go into Canaan and you will fight. And regardless of the number of people or the size of what it makes no difference, you will win. The only stipulation was Abraham had to keep his hands up. I'm not quite sure what that was about. I'm not Abraham, Moses. So they get to the border. And they say, well, I think we'd really rather have spies go in and make sure things are okay. In other words, they really didn't have much faith anymore. And so one person from each of the 12 tribes of Israel were selected, and those 12 people went into Canaan for 40 days and 40 nights. Same number as Moses going up Mount Sinai. They come back. Their one reference to food is that they were carrying a bundle of grapes that were so large it took 2 men to carry them. And they said to the people, well, of the 12 who came back, 10 of them said, we can't possibly do this. Those people are giants. They will annihilate us in a split second. Look at the fruit that everything is enormous. They had no faith. 2 of the spies, Joshua and Caleb, decided that in spite of the size of these people, God was on their side. God told them, go in, I got your back. After all that they have seen God do, people still needed proof. It's wild. But God sat patiently. Send yourself. Shalach lecha. Well, as it turned out, 10 of the 12 tribes said, we're not going anywhere. We just don't. We're not going. And so God said, fine. You don't have to go. If your faith isn't stronger than your fear, you shouldn't be going anyway. And thus began the Israelis' 40-year trek. They walked in circles for 40 years until all the people who were responsible for saying we don't trust God, all of them had died except Joshua and Caleb. We face these same things all the time. Jeannie hears me say it a lot. It's a gut feeling. It's just a gut. Sometimes it serves me well. Sometimes it doesn't. It doesn't stop me from having gut feelings. It's faith. It's faith. I have some trust in my instincts. And although there's fear, the fear doesn't win. And when it does, I really have to evaluate for myself what's going on here. Shalach lecha. We have sung a song, Lechi Lach, many times, but not recently. And it's, let me show you the land. Let me show you where you can be. And with that, I will ask that we sing Lechi Lach, and then I will finish the Devar.
To a land that I will to a place you do not know. Let me love on your journey. I will bless you, and you shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. Let me love. Let me love, and I shall make your name great. Lecha, and all shall praise your name. Let me love to the place that I will show you. Listen, Katai. Listen, Katai. Listen, Katai. Let me love.
Lesimchat Chaim, for the joy of life. I will lead you to a land, a place you do not know. Your journey I will bless. Do this for the joy of life. Yes, God was speaking to Abraham at the time. It is absolutely as fitting for this evening's Devar. We live in a time of fact-checking. We do. I have no doubt someone out there is picking up the Book of Lamentations and making sure that when I cited it correctly. That's fine. We verify everything these days. Oh, well, that politician said something, this judge said whatever. We always want to make sure the truth is being told. Nothing wrong with that. But what happens to faith? You've heard the expression, a leap of faith. Jeannie had no idea after our first date just how much of a leap of faith she would have to take. It's true. After I asked her to marry me, she made me wait 5 years. And then it was a leap of faith. Only because her father sort of insisted on it. We need some kind of balance between concern and compassion. We seek that. I would ask you, in wrapping up this evening's Devar, to be more trusting of our friends, and we should work to maintain their trust. Shabbat Shalom. I would ask you, please, to turn to page 586 and rise for the Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol. לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה שלא שם חלקנו כהם וגור עלינו ככל המון אנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שנותן השמיים ועושה הארץ Moshav Yakarov Bashamayim Ima'al Ushinatuzo Igohe Meromi Hu Eloheinu Eino Emet Malkeinu Efesulato Kakatu Betorato Yadata Yom Dehasiyota Elevavecha Ki Adonai Hua Elohim Bashamayim Ima'al Ya'aretz Nitata Page 588. For you spread out the heavens and established the earth. Your majestic abode is in the heavens above, and your mighty presence is in the loftiest heights. You are our God, and there is none else. In truth, you are our sovereign without compare, as is written in your Torah. Know then this day and take it to heart that Adonai is surely God in the heavens above and on the earth below. There is none else. Page 591. Please be seated. In February, I began reading this prayer for the Ukrainian people. It only gets worse. I don't know what to say other than I struggle with having faith myself. But at the end of the day, I have to believe in faith. Our God and God of our ancestors, bless the Ukrainian people in this, their dire hour of need. Help people everywhere to understand the blessings of our lives and circumstances, to be vigilant, compassionate, and brave. Strengthen us when we are afraid. Help motivate us to action. Help all of us to understand that our silence is complicity. Help us to taste the sweetness of liberty, to not take for granted the freedoms won in generations past, that we all may play a part to heal and nourish democracy. Source of all life, guide our world leaders with righteousness, strengthen their hearts and keep them from hardening, that they may use their influence and authority to speak truth to power. May people of every nation raise their voices in the name of justice, peace, and equality for all. May we be strong and have courage to be bold in our action and deep in our compassion, to discern when we must listen and when we must act, to uproot blind aggression, intolerance, and violence in all its forms. And finally, let us celebrate the many faces of God reflected in the wondrous diversity of humanity, to welcome the stranger and the immigrant. And let us say, Amen.
Amen.
I am not going to chant El Malay tonight, but I am going to ask you please to turn to page 591. ask you to turn to page 591. I have to find it myself. I don't know why I asked you. 591 is Vinette and Mar. My bad. Page 599. No wonder you couldn't find it. 599. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. For each and every one of them, we say, Zichronam livracha. May their memories always be for a blessing. About a month ago, I decided that I'd said that enough. It was time to take action. And even though I would have been voted the person least likely to ever get a tattoo, I did. And what it has on my arm? Zichronam livracha. We remember those who passed at this time in years before. Celia Greenberg Rushin and David Yarborough. We also remember those who passed within this past 12 months. David Yarborough, Sylvia Cart, Rossi Davis, Jack Smith, Laura Russiak-Rosen, Louis Jutzi, Michael Bernard, Annette Carter, Edna Dockerman, Robert Diskin, Erwin Finkelman, Mickey Kroll, Daniel Roach, Nicholas Collins, Ed Gallup, Frank Perrone, Barbara Babbitt, Thomas Hawk, Evelyn Hawk, and Luke Hawk, Eugene Schmuckler, John McPeak, Dennis Clausen, and Ellie Freed. Do you have other names? Are we in a period of Shiva, first 7 days? Yes, please. Sarah Gambrell. Zichronam livracha. Are we in a period of Shloshim, the first 30 days? Ronnie? Adam Snyder. Ellie Freed. Yes. We remember those as we rise together as a community of one. I invite you to rise physically and or spiritually. We are a community of one people when it comes to standing together to support those who are in mourning. I invite you to turn to page 598 and read along the Mourner's Kaddish. Yid Gadal v'Yid Kadash Shemei Rabbah v'Alma Divrach Hirutei v'Amlich Malchutei b'Chayachon u'v'Yomechon u'v'Chayei Dechol Beit Yisrael ba'agala u'v'Zman Kari v'Imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevorach li'alam u'almei almaya Yitbarach v'Yishtabach v'Yitba'ar v'Yitromam v'Yitnaseh v'Yithadar v'Yithalev v'Yithalal Shemed K'dusha Barichu La'elam im kol brachata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechemata da'miran be'alma v'yimru Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba min Shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru Amen. Oseh Shalom bimroma uya'aseh Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru Amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and all Israel. And let us say, Amen. Would you please be seated? If Etz Chaim He is my favorite song, Amirah runs a real close second. For those who have not been with us, I invite you to sing with us. The chorus is simply ha, hum. Hum, ha. It's pretty simple. It's a beautiful piece. Again, thank you, Bobby, for arranging it. With that, Ah, yes, Bobby has asked me to make sure of the translation. The one who enlightens the world and all of her inhabitants with mercy, and in her divine goodness, she continually renews each day the act of creation. Ham Ira. second favorite. In part because so many people sing along with it. It's great. It really is like one mind. It's extraordinary. I have a couple of quick announcements to make. Cindy Rushin will be celebrating a birthday this week. So will Ron Zell. Happy birthday to you both. Now, before we go any further with announcements, I'll ask Jeannie to read. I have perhaps the most important one of all. Last night, there was a congregational meeting here for Temple Beth David, and we voted overwhelmingly to hire Rabbi Hillel Nuri. His contract will begin on July 1st, a week from today. He will be with us 2 Friday nights, 2 Saturdays every month. And he has a bunch of other stuff he'll be doing, including leading High Holy Day services and being around for life cycle events. So, with that, I'm thrilled to say that we once again have a rabbi for our synagogue. I especially would like to thank members, all the members of the Rabbi Search Committee, especially Ronnie Pesarillo, who was my co-chair, or I was her co-chair. I don't know which way. But however it worked, there were 9 people on this committee, and 2 of them were alternates, but we never said anything. We just included them. It was 9 people working together to interview and show up for meetings, and we did it. We did it successfully. And you have my unending thanks. With that, Jeannie, do you have any announcements that you would like to make?
Yes. In keeping with current CDC guidelines, TBD has gone mask optional for those who are fully vaccinated. Masks are still required for anyone not fully vaccinated. Please consider joining us in the sanctuary to worship as a community. Please continue to read your TBD emails for announcements and event details. We want to thank Officer Myers for keeping us safe tonight and every time he puts on his uniform.
Great. With that, I'm going to ask you to rise one last time, physically and or spiritually, for the priestly blessing, the Yivarechecha. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord's face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord's face turn toward you and grant you peace. May you go from strength to strength. Shabbat Shalom.